1. I'm pretty skeptic. I don't believe in ghosts or demons. Well, I didn't until what happened 1 week ago. I'm just going to tell you my story, and hopefully you guys can help me. It was probably 2 or 3 a.m. I just woke up in the middle of the night for no reason. It's pretty normal for me to do that. I then just need 15 minutes to fall asleep again. While I was waiting to fall asleep again, I heard my room door open and somebody came in. I have a wooden floor that would make a creaking sound at the smallest things, so you can pretty much hear a mouse running around, so little was necessary to creak that wooden floor. First I thought that it was my roommate. He sometimes comes into my room to steal some of my cigarettes. Well, I never caught him doing that, but I'm pretty sure he does it, so I was ready to confront him. I was waiting for him to do something so I can spot him in the act. I was waiting and waiting, but he didn't do anything. While I was waiting, my brain that was still a bit sleepy remembered something. My roommate is not in the house today. He told me he was going to a party, and then sleeping at a friend's. So I thought, shit, a burglar. But I calmed down and thought it through. Maybe he came back because his friend didn't want him at his house, or he has somebody else over. But why is he in my room just standing there? Is he drunk? And is he doing some weird things? Maybe he took something and is now acting weird. Well, now I was concerned he would do something stupid, so I was about to turn around until I felt a warm breeze on my neck. It felt like somebody was breathing on my neck. I was frozen. Goosebumps all over my body. He must have moved and is now breathing down my neck. My bed is on the other corner of my room. He at least had to take 3 steps to do this. But I didn't hear anything. I still tried to think rationally. Maybe this is just a breeze. It is the summer and I'm sleeping with my window open. It's probably just a breeze. But there was still the problem of my drunk roommate on drugs or a burglar. Now I had to find out what it was. If it was my roommate on drugs, help him. If it was a burglar, just take whatever you want. I'm going to pretend I'm sleeping. So I made a move to turn around. I was sleeping on my side, my back turned against the door. I had to do a full 180 while I was halfway turned. I just felt terror, like pure fear. My survival instinct said to me, don't turn around, you will die. I have no idea why I'm thinking that, but it takes my whole willpower to not start shaking out of fear. Because my survival instincts also said, if you move, you are dead. I didn't know what was happening. My brain thinking what it was giving my body so much terror. Without even seeing it, but there was nothing. It didn't make sense. Am I having a panic attack? But why now? I've had panic attacks in the past, but they didn't feel like this. I just knew with every fiber of my body, as soon as I move, this thing will kill me. So until 5 a.m. I was just laying there, full with fear. Until it just vanished, all of my fear just gone, like that. As soon as I opened my eyes, I looked at the door. It was wide open, but there was nobody there. I didn't hear anybody leave. My whole body was concentrated on this thing. It couldn't just have left without making a noise on the wooden floor. I was just standing upright in my bed. My brain didn't know what was going on. It didn't make sense. Why was I scared? Why was the door open? Did it open because of the wind? That's never happened before. It wasn't even that windy. So how did it open? Why was I scared? Was there something? Was it all a dream? But it didn't feel like a dream. I still remember everything. So I was still sure it was just my roommate. I yelled out his name, but there was no response. I did it again, nothing. I called him on my phone that was beside me. He picked up, sounding really tired. I asked him if he was in the house. No, I told him I'm sleeping at a friend's today. I asked him to stay on the phone because I heard somebody in the house. I walk around and nothing is missing or disturbed. Everything is still in the same place. Our front door is closed, and it just looks like it was me in this house the whole time. I say sorry to him for waking him up, and he's a bit angry, but then just ends the call. I get my keys and wallet, and leave the house. I talked with my friends, and everybody told me it was sleep paralysis, or a panic attack, or a dream, but it couldn't be. If it was sleep paralysis, I was still able to move for a bit, and then it was like I couldn't move. My fear made me unable to move. Panic attack? No, I know what one feels like, and it's not like that. Also, if I have a panic attack, there's always a trigger. I had a traumatic past, and if some special things happen to me, like somebody touching my back for too long, I can get a panic attack. But there was no such trigger. A dream. I didn't wake up like I would out of a nightmare, also I can still remember every detail. I just don't know what this was. Maybe somebody out here can give me a reasonable response. I'm even open about this being a demon or something. 2. Some years ago, I worked for a solar firm as a warehouse manager. I was in charge of their warehouse, which was located in the Kapapa Caves. The warehouse was 2 rented caves and surrounding lots, which were fenced in. These caves were old military storage units dug into the gulch walls. The caves were about 200 feet deep and 20 feet wide and tall, reinforced with concrete. The solar firm stored their equipment and materials in the caves. The lots were vehicles, heavy machinery, and a few 40-feet containers were held. I worked there with my driver. The caves had no electricity or plumbing, so a solar system and a backup generator powered the caves, and a porta-potty provided relief. Cell reception was spotty, at best, so I would have to drive out to make cell calls. When I started working there, I had no information on the history of Kapapa Gulch. My work schedule was 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. When I started work, a lot of times it was still dark, so when I got there, I had to power up the caves. If the batteries of the solar system didn't have enough juice, I'd have to power up the generator. I normally have to do this only using the light from my phone. It was pretty quiet at our units. The neighboring caves were quite a distance away, and they were primarily used as storage, so we really didn't see anybody around. Rarely a truck would pass by going up to the units further up the gulch. At first, it was like any other workplace, nothing out of the ordinary. But soon after, I started to notice some weird happenings. The first thing I noticed that was weird was the dead animals. Walking around the site, I would find dead Jackson chameleons all over the place. They were just there on the ground, dead. I figured cats were getting them, but I also noticed their carcasses were intact without damage. Looks like they just fell from the trees around the caves. There were also a lot of dead monkeys, myna birds, owls, pigeons, and ducks, all intact carcasses with no predatory marks like bites or scratches. Pretty weird, yeah? Now on to the really weird stuff. Every few days or so, I would hear banging coming from inside the containers. The containers were under lock and key. Every time I would hear the banging, I would have to unlock and open the containers to make sure nobody was inside. I would open the containers, find nobody or any animals inside. After a few weeks of this, I said fuck it and stopped checking. I figured the materials inside were adjusting to temperature changes. Okay. While working in the cave one day, walking to the back end, passing a certain spot, I smelled the strong scent of body odor. It was like I'd passed by very close to somebody, but nobody was there in the cave that day but me. I walked to the back of the cave, did what I needed to do back there, and proceeded to walk back to the front of the cave. As soon as I got to the spot where I first smelled the BO, I again smelled the strong odor, just as before. It seemed like I just passed by very close to somebody. I got to the entrance of the cave and quickly checked if I forgot to put deodorant on during my morning routine, but no. I did have my deodorant on, my mind playing tricks on me. I had a small desk set up at the entrance to the cave where I would work on a laptop. I would check emails from the office and do paperwork. Every so often I would hear noises coming from the back of the caves. The noises were like something moving, and it sounded like something large, bigger than a mongoose or cat. At first I would go back and check it out, but after quite a few times finding nothing there, I said F it. I chalked it up to the equipment adjusting to temperature changes. Okay. Again. One early morning, while it was still dark before my driver left on his route, we heard a woman screaming coming from above the caves. The gulch walls are about 100 feet up, and the sounds came from up top. It sounded like domestics, and went on for about 15 minutes. My driver and I figured there was a subdivision up there, and a couple were having it out. A few weeks later, during a lull in my work, my driver and I decided to drive up gulch and check out the other caves. We drove about a mile up the gulch, and came to the last cave. From there we could see our cave, and what was directly above it. To our amazement, on the plateau above our cave, there was no subdivision, no houses, no roads, no nothing. Who was screaming up there? What the fuck? We had a lot of machinery, vehicles, electronics, mechanical equipment, solar systems, etc. Everything would seem to crap out, even our personal vehicles and property. We would have to call our technicians to come repair the equipment and machinery. They were constantly there repairing stuff, but what was weird was a lot of times they would come down and find nothing wrong with the equipment, where all of a sudden, the equipment started to work fine. After a while of this, we started to video ourselves starting up the equipment so we could show them we were doing it correctly, and the equipment, in fact, was not working before we called for repair. But this is the creepiest thing that happened to me there. One day I loaded up my driver and he left for his route. I then had to go do my business. I went into the porta potty and locked the door. Before I could do anything, the stall began to shake back and forth. I yelled out thinking my driver came back and was playing a joke on me. I unlocked the door, hopped out thinking I would find my driver laughing, but no one was there. I ran up to the cave to see if anybody was around, but again, nobody there. I called my driver, the call went through, and he was already on the freeway. He thought I was crazy after I told him what happened. After that, I tried not to use the porta potty as much as I could. After a year there, I was laid off due to a slump in the solar business. Only then I decided to seek out the history of that place. Look up the history of old Hawaii, Kapapa Gulch, and let me know what you think. By the way, one of the caves across from where our caves were is where the illegal fireworks disposal crew lost their lives. It is said that a crew member was smoking in the cave where they stored the seized illegal fireworks. 3. I've always had a strong attraction to things like ghosts, apparitions, poltergeists, cryptids, aliens, anything really that falls under the occult or esoteric. You name it, I probably believe in it. However, I myself never had any experience that was unexplainable until this incident. A little bit of background. I am a cisgender male, and this was maybe 1 or 2 years ago when I was about 26. My best friend, who we'll just call Aaron, is also a cisgender male, and a couple years older than I. We're both Hispanic men. We both grew up in households where things like witchcraft, folk healers, and curses were accepted as religion. God, souls, and the afterlife. We're open-minded, but still skeptical. The incident started when I got a gift at work. The PTSA made shirts for teachers and staff to wear. The shirts were rolled up and tied with a craft ribbon. The material of the ribbon looked like burlap, but much thinner and stiffer. When I got home, I hung the shirt and left the ribbon on the counter. I walked away and didn't think twice about that burlap ribbon. A week or so after, my best friend Aaron, who lives in Houston, came to visit me in Austin, about a 4-hour drive. I was ecstatic because we hadn't seen each other in months. When Aaron finally arrived, we hugged and brought everything inside before sitting down at the dining room table to catch up. Fair warning, we are both spiritual people, and both practice brujeria. We eventually landed on the subject of Dia de los Muertos. This was the first year we set up altars for Dia de los Muertos. Aaron had put a photo of his grandfather on his altar. He always felt connected to his grandfather despite never meeting him, so he decided to use a new instrument. Aaron had just recently started using a pendulum and decided to try it out. He took out his pendulum and asked if his grandfather was there, and he got a positive response. We continued discussing the outcome a bit more before we moved over to the counter just over the burlap ribbon. Aaron and I faced each other with the ribbon between us. We continued catching up and talking about everything that came to mind when suddenly the ribbon moved by itself. It happened a fraction of a second. In my peripheral vision, it looked almost like someone straightened out the burlap ribbon. We stopped talking and looked up at the burlap ribbon for a moment before looking at each other. I broke the silence by saying, "Did you see that?" When Aaron said no, I felt chills run down my back. My stomach started to tremble, because I knew Aaron didn't do it, nor was it all in my imagination. I have a witness that can confirm this happened. I started thinking of the logical way out. I thought maybe the ribbon just unfurled itself. So I picked it up and started messing with it, but the burlap ribbon had some wire to keep its form. How could this have unfurled itself? It was too rigid. I rolled it back up and watched to see if it would unfurl itself, and it wouldn't. I thought maybe it was a breeze, but after checking the AC, which was not on, and the windows, which were closed, I realized there was no way to make a breeze in here. To this day, I still have no logical or rational explanation for this event. The non-logical explanation that I come up with is that maybe it was one of Aaron's spirit guides or guardian angels making themselves known. So that's all, no dishes flying off the shelves or heads spinning and puking. It was just an object that moved on its own accord a mere 3 inches from us. If anyone has any explanation for this event, run it by me. 4. I'm going to tell you all about the time I spent living in my dad and stepmom's house. I'm now 25 and married, but the story takes place from 4 to 20 years old. Please note my sister is a medium, a good one at that, but I won't really touch on that much here. This is only one of many stories from my time at that house and in my life. The first time I got nervous in my new home was when I turned 6. I was helping my dad cook dinner, and he had asked me to go get my sister, as it was time to eat. I waddled down the hallway and went to open our bedroom door, only to hear her talking and giggling. I opened the door slowly to see her brushing her doll's hair while talking. Thinking maybe she too had pretend friends, I asked who she was talking to. She answered me smiling, "The little girl from the closet." I took it as she meant the doll because that's where it was when put up. Regardless, I told her food was done and went on with our evening. This proceeded to occur for a while, a few years even. I just ignored it, and my parents didn't believe me until they caught her doing it. Suddenly, I wasn't so weird. From talking to no one, my sister progressed to sleepwalking. Usually she would go to the bathroom and just stare at herself in the mirror. Eyes wide open, but no one home. My dad sleeps incredibly light and would wake up when she passed his door and tell her to go back to bed after a while. She never once would say a word. I mentioned the sleepwalking because by the age of 10 I was terrified of the house. Every night I would cry when I stayed there. I told my dad, "Someone is walking in the halls," or "Dad, someone is in the house, I swear." He would tell me it was my sister or just the creaking of an old house. Little did I know that when I moved out he would come to me and tell me he heard it too. It scared him as well. It wasn't my sister. Time passed, and I moved into my brother's old room. My dad built an extra room in the basement, and he moved down there so he wouldn't have to be next to his annoying younger sisters. So when I was moving into the room, I was clearing out anything he left, sweeping and general cleaning that was needed. Well, I did the closet last. I opened up this tiny closet, and on the top shelf was a globe. I figured it was my brother's, so I went to ask him. Nope, not his. Asked my dad, not his either. Went to my stepmom and asked her. She had found it when we moved in. She had forgotten about it. Not really caring at this point, I put it back. I didn't use the top shelf anyway. For a long time, only little things would happen, like being watched, giggling, footsteps following you, and general unease. Maybe an open cabinet on the offhand, or a door slowly opening until I was 18. I moved in for the summer because my mom worked out of state at the time. I remember one night, I heard a door open as I was nearly asleep. Figuring it was my dad doing his goodnight check-in, I stayed in my loopy state. I felt something brush my hair back and then walk away, and the door closed. I brought it up at breakfast and said, "I knew you still checked on us at night, Dad." Looked up and back down at his paper and said, "No, I don't. You're old enough." I laughed and told him I hurt him. I had felt him touch me. He stopped and slowly looked up at me. My smile slowly fell, and I looked to my sister for support. She was sheet white. I looked back at my dad, now feeling nauseous, only for him to tell me, "Lauren, I wasn't home last night. I left right after dinner for work, you know that." I felt ill. Someone or something had touched me, caressed me even. It hadn't felt evil, loving, almost longing even. My dad left and my sister took me aside to talk. She told me she had a dream last night where she found a guy in my room standing over me, looking at me longingly. She said she got the feeling I resembled his wife, and it saddened him. So what did we do? We set up a camera, we videotaped for weeks, until one night, you heard and saw my closet door slightly creep open until suddenly the screen went blank, and the rest of the video was blank, static. I never felt quite right in that room, but it made me feel like I was an animal in a zoo for something or someone. After that, I take more notice of things like my dogs refusing to enter or stay in my room, or they'd sleep on top of me and I'd wake to them snarling at night. My lights would flicker and my radio would suddenly cut out. Luckily, I moved to college shortly after, and due to family issues, We moved while I was gone. 5. This happened years ago, in about 1997 when I was 12 or 13, and I still haven't come up with a good explanation for it. My mum and I had decided to repaint my bedroom, so this particular day, we started by moving all of my furniture into the center of my bedroom, apart from my bed, which we moved in pieces onto the landing outside my bedroom. The bed was a single divan, so there was a fairly sturdy base with drawers in it. So heavy too. And then there was a headboard, a mattress, and bedding. At the time we lived in a big Victorian house. I'm in England, and my bedroom was down a long corridor, with the other 3 bedrooms on the opposite side of the house. For context, I never really liked that house and had a bad feeling about it right from when we moved in, when I was 4. And other people said the same over the years too. There were a few other odd occurrences too, but this one was the weirdest by far. So that day, we closed my bedroom door and set to painting my walls. This took all afternoon, though we had a break, so we were in and out of my bedroom a couple of times. Once we'd finished painting, my mum had an appointment for a plumber to come round to diagnose a problem with the boiler. He wasn't there long, maybe 10 minutes at most. And then we had dinner. It was early evening when my mum said we could probably put all my furniture back into my room and get it ready for me to sleep that night. However, we moved all the furniture from the middle of my room back into place, then went to get my bed, and it was just gone. We couldn't work out where it was and probably stood on the corridor outside my bedroom for 5 minutes, discussing whether we were losing our minds. When we set off looking for it, checking other rooms, and eventually I found it in my mum's bedroom, on top of my mum's bed. It was set out exactly as it should be, with the divan base the right way up, the mattress on top, the headboard in the right place, etc. It was ready to be slept on, except it was on top of my mum's bed in her bedroom. I can still remember the feeling I had pushing open my mum's bedroom door and seeing it, just knowing something really freaking weird had happened. I was really scared, and so was my mum, though initially she tried to hide it, saying things like, there has to be an explanation, etc. However, we talked it around endlessly and have done 100 times since, and we've never come up with an explanation. My mum even called the plumber that night to ask if he'd moved it, and he was very perplexed and said no, because why would he have done? And more importantly, how could he have done when he was only there for 10 minutes and was checking something on the boiler the whole time? I should also add that my sister, aged 10, was in the house at the time of this incident, but was watching films and playing downstairs. She also freaked out and started crying, which earned me a ban on ever talking about it in front of her. The layout of the house meant that the bed had to have been moved along the corridor from my bedroom, and then moved around 3 corners to get into my mum's bedroom, before being lifted up onto her bed. It was a 2-person job for us to move it back. And because the base was bulky, I think even someone really strong would have struggled to move it alone. So I feel certain the plumber wouldn't have done it, and neither could my little sister. One thing I've always wondered, at what point the bed moved. We were in and out of my bedroom all day, but only noticed it wasn't there when we went to put it back. I have no idea what happened, but when I think about it now, it still freaks me the fuck out. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 248. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and comments are of course always welcome. Apologies for the lack of videos this week. Some of you who follow me on Twitter will have seen, and those who check the community tab will also have seen, computer troubles, basically, is what it boils down to. This computer that I use, I have my gaming computer in the living room and my work computer in my bedroom. And it pretty much mostly just gets used for YouTube production, for recording stories, editing, that sort of thing. It doesn't get used for a lot else, unless I'm not feeling very well, in which case it's me snuggled up in bed, surrounded by duvets, and watching Netflix, Disney+, that sort of thing. Which is what I was actually doing for a good portion of last week. Thank goodness for Burn Notice, it cheered me up, I must say. Anyway, So what happened is, essentially for a couple of years now, this computer has been quite slow. I figured, well, it was just old, but it seems to be working. It would take a while to start up, and when it got to the desktop, and this has literally been years this has been happening, it would be a few minutes before I could really do anything, before it would respond properly, and when it did, it responded fine. It was maybe a bit sluggish, but it was opening, closing programs. I was doing my recording, no problems with anything. But I've been noticing over the past few months it's been getting worse and worse, so I knew in my mind I'd need to do something about it soon. And I kind of had a feeling it might be the hard drive, but at the same time I didn't want to start spending money on components, because basically I'd worked out I could build a semi-new computer by harvesting some components from this one for about £600. Because I've got a spare CPU for my old gaming computer, which is actually better than the CPU in my work computer. And I could reuse the power, but I need to get a new motherboard, new RAM, various other things. So basically everything totaled out to about 600 quid. Then I thought, well, I'd really rather get a laptop. So I was reluctant to spend money upgrading or semi-upgrading, rebuilding my work PC, when I would much rather have saved that money and put it towards a laptop, which a decent laptop for video production is going to cost at least double that. But the computer made the decision for me by the hard drive crapping out. Basically, it's happened a few times in the past few weeks. It gets stuck in a repair loop. Previously, I've been able to knock it out and get it working again. But this last time, couldn't. Took the hard drive out, put it in another computer just to test if it was some other issue with the computer, but no, definitely it was just the hard drive. So, new hard drive bought, I got an SSD this time. Then after turning over the junk room in my house, which I'm working on clearing out, I couldn't find my old Windows 8 installation disk, because I needed, even though it's Windows 10 that was upgraded to the computer, through the free upgrade they did, I still needed the activation code, and I couldn't find the damn disk. It's in the house somewhere, because I don't throw things like that out until they're no longer being used. But couldn't find that, so I had to then buy another copy of Windows. Plus side is, I bought it from Microsoft, so I shouldn't have that issue again. So, no hard drive, fresh copy of Windows home later. Was going to get the Pro version, because it was a Pro version I did have. Again, there was the Pro version of Windows 8, so when they upgraded to Windows 10 Pro, the price difference is quite considerable, and when you look into the differences and you hear what the differences are, most users will be, even someone who uses it for their job, will be sitting thinking, I don't actually use any of those features. So I got the home edition, literally meets all my requirements, and computer is now working like it's new. So, silver lining, I'm determined to look at it this way. The computer hasn't worked this well in years, but then again, it's going from a rundown, almost 7-year-old hard drive, which for a hard drive is quite a long time. That being said, I do have another hard drive from my previous PC, which has got to be about 10 years old by this point, which still works, surprisingly. It's going from like an old hard drive to a new SSD, so there was going to be an improvement, but it's great. Programs are opening and closing, and it's not taking like a minute or two here and there. Everything's just overall swifter. So the computer, let's just say, the computer made the decision for me that I would upgrade/rebuild, more just an upgrade, my work computer. So I won't be bothering with the laptop for a while. I have other priorities. My next priority is the camera on the Amazon wish list of things Hellfreezer wants/needs to buy. The next thing is the camera. Did need a new bed, but I've got that now. Not using it yet. It's sitting in pieces in one of my spare rooms. I only have 2 other rooms apart from my bedroom. I don't want anyone thinking I'm living in a mansion here. I don't make that kind of money. But I'll put that together at the weekend, and hopefully PC problems are behind me. And the next purchase I make will be the camera, so that I'll have a good quality camera, and not only for streaming, but I can actually start then putting me in videos. What you'll have a little Hellfreezer at the corner of the screen, maybe a big Hellfreezer. We'll try things out and see what works, and you'll be able to see me making funny faces as I record, so hopefully that adds a new dimension to the videos. Okay, onward and upward. Back to videos. Should have spinning plates tomorrow. I don't know what we're doing Sunday, Monday yet, but definitely spinning plates tomorrow. And with that, that's a very long outro. I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.